Welcome, everybody. I'm columnist Gil Smart. Welcome to the TCPalm editorial board meeting to interview candidates for the for the St. Lucie County Supervisor of Elections position. As noted again, I'm columnist Gil Smart, and I'm joined today by fellow editorial board member Laurence Reisman, a columnist and community editor. We are here to listen to the two candidates for the position: Gertrude Walker, the incumbent, and Sheritta Davis-Johnson, the challenger. I'll lead the questioning and we'll open up to other questions at the end. We've been having a few technical difficulties. Ms. Walker is unable to join us via video, but she will be joining us via her cell phone. Kelly Rogers is directing the video coverage today. If we have questions from the social media audience watching this, we will try to get some of those in at the end. I want to thank our candidates for streamlining this process by completing the questionnaires ahead of time. Board members have reviewed them. They can be found online at tcpalm.com/elections, along with other stories, videos, and information about the August 18th election. At the conclusion of this interview, editorial board members will discuss possibly writing an editorial to recommend a candidate in this race. We've got several questions today, and we might end up having more of a conversation than just a simple Q&A. Our goal is to be completed in 45 minutes to an hour. Again, I apologize for us starting late due to our technical difficulties. Because of our time constraints, we ask that the candidates keep their answers concise and be respectful of others. We will start with the challenger, Ms. Johnson. Thanks for being here today. The first question is, many of our audience members aren't as familiar with the Supervisor of Elections position or candidacy as they are with other candidates, like Board of County Commissioners, that sort of thing. Tell us a little bit about your background and what qualifies you for this office.
Well, my official background right now is I'm the risk manager for the city of Fort Pierce. However, my position is very diverse. I'm assigned to many duties. Nonetheless, I've actually performed them. So as the risk manager, I have over 21 years of experience in leadership, evaluating and assessing risk, exercising sound judgment. And some of the other things that I've done is I was the administrative services director for 2 years, which was oversight over our human resources and our purchasing department. And what that entailed, being over the human resources and purchasing department, excuse me, in regards to human resources, I was responsible for making a recommendation to hire, to terminate. I was over our, the 3 unions, which was IUPA, PBA, and Teamsters as the lead negotiator. And that affects pay, that affects the insurance, all of that. Budgeting aspect, I've had to do the budgeting for 3 departments within the city of Fort Pierce. I'm the trainer. I'm currently the trainer as well for the city of Fort Pierce. So I've worn many hats. Most notably, I've done the chief of police search for the city of Fort Pierce. And that entailed getting all the community leaders together, all the stakeholders together, and scheduling them, seeing what the community wanted in the next chief of police. And the community got what they asked for. So that is a little bit about my background. Policy and procedures is what I do all day. From risk management, of course, we have to deal with workers' comp, and there are laws that deal with that. The time limits, as far as reporting a claim, I deal with all the trip and falls within the city of Fort Pierce, the potholes within the city of Fort Pierce. So I have an extensive background in assessing risk and mitigating risk, which that has a lot to do with the Supervisor of Elections office. Believe it or not, you have to be able to see the risk before it comes, before it hits your system. And if it actually penetrates the system, the one thing you want to do is make sure you have people in place that can actually help mitigate that risk. So I am very well qualified. I have an MBA from Palm Beach Atlantic University, and I use my skills to help the city of Fort Pierce in a great way.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Let's turn to Ms. Walker, if you can hear me, ma'am. Tell us a little bit more about your background, your qualifications for the office. I believe you're a 10-time incumbent. Why do you want this job for another term?
Why I want the job is the job that I've enjoyed for many, many years. I've been in this position, and I certainly enjoy what I do. I enjoy working with the people. I've had the experience to manage a large group of people. I actually manage about 500 people on election day and coming up to election day. So I can tell you that I've had a lot of management, and I have been able to build a great team of election administrators in my office, as well as build a great team of the poll workers that have to put on the election, about 500 of them. My background, of course, since I started this job at a very young age, I have spent most of my adult life here in the St. Lucie Supervisor election. I started here very early and very young, so I've been here about all of my life, all of my adult life. I came here and worked for the two previous supervisors. I was hired by one, and then I was hired, kept on by the other one, but I have the experience necessary to continue to do this job. I think I do a very good job. I'm qualified to do so. I have a number of professional certifications in the field of election management, and so basically I have I'm a certified public administrator from the University of Missouri. I received a certificate in cybersecurity. I certainly have a master. I received my master Florida certified election professional from the University of Florida in 2018, and I'm a certified. I received a certificate in public leadership from Pepperdine University. So I have quite a bit of professional certification, management skills, and the ability to manage a large group and put on an election.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll start this question with Ms. Walker again here.
We'll start with you, Gertrude.
We'll start with you, Gertrude. What do you see as the biggest issue facing the supervisor of elections in the coming year and beyond, and how would you address that issue?
I didn't hear the proceedings of what you said.
Okay.
You said you would start with me.
Okay, we'll start with Gertrude. Let me unmute. Let me unplug my microphone here, and Gil can speak again. And go ahead, Gil.
Okay. The question is, what do you see as the biggest issue facing the supervisor of elections in the near future, and how would you address that issue?
Well, the biggest issue facing the supervisor of elections, as I see it in the future, is currently and in the future. I see the security. Cybersecurity is one of the biggest issues facing all corporations and all government agencies now, because of the internet has become a proverbial minefield, and anyone that has to do business out there has to be very cognizant of cybersecurity, and I feel that that is my top priority now and will be in the very near future, and as well as for the training of staff and making sure that we're on top of that situation. We entered into an agreement with the Secretary of State, cybersecurity agreement, and so we're in this road of the internet every day, and everything that we do revolves around the internet. And so, as the supervisor of elections, that's my top priority.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Let's turn the question to Sheritta here. Sheritta, what do you see as the biggest issue facing the supervisor of elections in the near future, and how would you address that issue?
Again, I definitely would have to agree with Mrs. Walker. It's definitely security. And as she said before, they're working with the Secretary of State Lee with the new system that's in place. But I think we have to take it a little further than that. And I'll give an example of that. So we do have a system in place that is going to sound the alarm. It's like our home system. The home system let you know that someone is trying to invade. But on the other side of that, we have to have people in place with the wherewithal to interpret what's going on so they can actually mitigate that before it actually penetrates from the inside. So that's one of the major things that we have going on. And I think at this point, we do have some very competent people in place. I know that the governor has also hired, has 10 positions for cybersecurity. So that is actually going to be a great benefit going forward. And that's going to help with a lot of the what we're doing over the internet now. Too bad we're not still using analog lines where we can actually know that it's secure and you can't tap into it. But this is the world that we're living in today. But yes, security is definitely number one.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's start this one with Sheritta. Let's talk about election turnout, in particular primary turnout. What can the supervisor of elections do, if anything, to help increase turnout? Primary election turnout in St. Lucie County in particular has not been great. How can that be addressed?
So first off, you're right. The primary elections, we've had less than 27% of voters to turn out. And some of the things that I think that we can do is educate, inform. The more people know and the more they're educated, I think it makes it a lot simpler. So I give an example of that. Being out in the community and I'm talking to people and kind of engaging people, most people don't know or didn't know. They say, hey, I see you in November. And I said, oh, we have a midterm election that's coming up, and explain to them the midterm election and the importance of local and why you need to vote in those midterm elections, because some of your races won't go any further. Or better yet, some of the people that you like to see on the ballot come November, they won't be there because you didn't participate. So some people are saying, well, I had no idea that that's what I needed to do. You had some people didn't know if they were registered. So I take my cell phone out, like here, check it right here so you can see if you're registered to vote. But I think the more we inform the people and the more we educate people, it kind of takes that intimidation process out of it so that we can do some things together. Other thing that I noticed that was really interesting is some of the people that knew about the primary election, they had no idea that once they was inside the election poll, that if they made a mistake on the ballot, they were allowed to ask for another ballot. They were like, you've got to be kidding me. They thought it was a provisional ballot. It's not a provisional ballot. So I'm explaining out, really educating people. I think the more we educate people, and well-informed people actually represent who we are as a community. So we know that voting is a fundamental principle of our democracy, but the other part to that is a well-informed voter reflects who we are as a community. And I think we have to inform. So some of the things I think we could do is have some of I propose is having some pop-up community events, having some town halls where people can come and ask the questions that they need to ask. Hit all four corners of the county. Say, hey, the Supervisor of Elections office is going to be here on this day. We're going to answer your questions and we're going to give you some information. Hit all four corners. And the other thing I think would be really beneficial for us is having some roundtable discussions, having some.
I'm sorry, Sheritta, I think you accidentally hit your mute button.
My hands are in.
There you go. Oh, okay.
I guess sorry about that. I guess my papers hit it, but long story. Right. I think having some of the older generation really start to talk to some of the younger people so that they'll understand the importance of voting and some of the things that they've suffered through and why it's important. Understanding the 15th Amendment. Again, I would say education, inform would be the key to getting more people out to vote. The other thing is the county south of us, which is West Palm Beach, Palm Beach County, they actually have their, it's a holiday for them. They're closed. And the teachers actually use that day to actually assist the Supervisor of Elections. So I think that would be a great opportunity there to get a better voter turnout. And I'm sure if we had some really good conversation with Mr. Gent, who's a very reasonable guy, that's something that we can probably implement, not this term, but in the near future. So bridging those community partnerships and kind of bringing people close together and informing people, that's going to be the way that we can move that less than 27% and kind of tip the scale a little more.
Okay, very good. Let me pose the question to Gertrude. Gertrude, is there anything the Supervisor of Election can do to boost election turnout?
Well, certainly, an educated electorate is a participating electorate, and education is very important. And because if we do everything that we can to educate the voters, and I think that we're in that process right now to find better ways to educate the voters. I think they need to be informed, and certainly every voter in the county receives, everyone that's registered to vote, receives a sample ballot with all of the information, all of the guidelines, all of the rules. Every voter receives a voter information card It gives them the opportunity to request the ballot, correct the ballot. It tells them about the provisional ballot if they don't have identification. There's so much information that's disseminated directly to the voter. But I know that it is important to make sure that we educate. And I would like to start educating at the level of the school. And for that reason, we have a first vote program in our high school. We have a first vote program, and I'm very proud of that program because we go in the classroom of every American history, civics, and government class. We go in the classroom, we show a 15-minute video, we have a discussion, we show how to vote, how to mark your ballot, and all of the information that they need in order to cast their first vote. And we certainly have been doing this for a number of years. The program, of course, is expanding. We are now going to parochial schools and many other types of schools in order to make sure that we are not just hitting the public schools, but we're hitting all the schools. And we go into every classroom. We've registered over 4,000 people, 4,000 young people since the 2016 registration. So that's 2017, 18, and 19. And so we're working on education, and I believe education is key. And I am working very hard to make sure that the voters are educated on their rights and their ability to vote. Of course, I have information out on the Facebook. I post information out there, all the information necessary to ensure that the voters are knowledgeable about the process. And I look at I actually look at the results of the election, and I can see that in a presidential election, we have a very high turnout because the voters receive the most information about the election. And this is throughout the United States. This is not just in St. Lucie County. Voter outreach is always going to be a priority of my office, but I find that voters seem to behave the same way in every county and turn out about the same amount all over the state of Florida. And so what we can do is to continue to try to educate as many people as possible, but I can't say that we're going to be able to change overnight the percentage of turnout of the voters. We can just continue to try to educate them.
Okay, very good. This question will go first to Gertrude. Due to COVID-19 concerns, more voters are likely to vote by mail this year than perhaps ever before. There are some concerns, some of the partisan concerns, about the integrity of the system. How do you ensure those concerns are misplaced and the system is safe and secure?
How can I assure them that the system is safe and secure? The canvassing board is actually in charge of the canvass of the absentee ballots. The ballots are received by the Supervisor of Elections office. The signature on every ballot is verified against the signature of the voter. Once that process has been completed, those ballots are sealed. The canvassing board convenes. The ballots are brought out, and they can be inspected by the public. Those ballots as well are open. No ballot is open until the canvassing board is in session. The ballots are open. Once they're open, they're tabulated, and then they're resealed. One of the things that I do as a supervisor of St. Lucie County, and one of the first supervisors in the state of Florida, if I wasn't the first, I was the second, to have a 100% audit of the election on a state-certified audit system that shows unequivocally that every ballot was counted and every ballot was counted accurately, and the results can be validated. And so how can we assure the public that the system is secure is because of the safeguards put in place to ensure that the ballot is received from the voter who it was mailed to, that it was tabulated by the canvassing board, and that those results are validated with a 100% audit. The state only requires, the state laws of Florida only require 2% of the ballots to be audited. And I don't think that's sufficient. We have to have an 100% audit, and I have been conducting a 100% audit of every election since the 2012 election.
Okay, very good. Let me turn the question to Sheritta. Sheritta, given concerns about this, what can the Supervisor of Elections do to make sure that those concerns are misplaced and the system is safe and secure?
Well, I'm going to have to say ditto to what Mrs. Walker has said at this point. Some of the systems that are already in place can actually help that. The other thing that I'll say is there's nothing that's 100%. Okay, so one of the things that I will tell you, I'm going to the polls because I'm a traditional voter, but that's just me. And I will have my mask, my gloves, and everything to make sure I'm safe. There's quite a few people that's actually saying they're going to do the same thing because they're really unsure about the mail-in ballots. I think the mail-in ballots is definitely a good choice as an option. And I'm just hoping, and I'm just going to hope and trust that the people on the other side is actually doing what they're supposed to do and making sure the signatures are accurate and things are in place the way they should be. The canvassing board is definitely there. I know that once they take making sure that the signatures are supposed to match. I know that they're at some point they're separated. I'm just hoping that that there's integrity in the process. I'm not on the inside yet to see that process, but I'm just going to have to trust and believe that the process is in order. The one thing that I can tell you about the audit, I'm going to be honest with you, that probably frustrates me more than anything. The audit comes after the certification of the election. I don't know why it's not done simultaneously. And I know that it's legislative stuff that has to be done. But I think, in fact, we need to do some things differently, because here's the thing. Even if the audit caught something, at this point it's too late and it's not going to be overturned. So it's beautiful that we're doing 100% audit or the 2% audit, whatever the state is requiring. However, the audit should not come after the certification and everything is turned in and everything gets settled. So I'm going to put that plug in there because that I have an issue with that. And I think we need to take that to legislation, our legislators, so that we can have a change in that particular, with that process.
Okay, very good. We'll start with Sheritta with this question. Is there anything about the way the Supervisor of Elections office works that could be improved? What is it and how would you improve it?
I do think some things can be improved. I think that the folks that work in the Supervisor of Elections office, they've done a wonderful job. So some of the things that I've seen, and not just me, a few people have actually said a few things, is you do have some people that are cross-trained, but we have some people that they're the only ones that do that particular job. And if they're not available or they're not in, you don't get that service until they're available. That is not acceptable to me. I believe that you need to have 2-3 people that is cross-trained to do the job from beginning to end, regardless of what your job title is. You should know that someone else should know that position inside out. Here, life is not promised to any of us. We're human. We get sick. Things happen. Family happen. So that's one of the things that I think we can improve is in regards to the cross-training. The other thing is with information, that if it's basic information, everyone should understand and know the basic information. I'll give an example of that. A few people called the Supervisor of Elections office to ask in regards to my race and Gertrude's race. And they were told that only Democrats can vote in that race, which we know that is not the case. Our race is it's because we're of the same party and we don't have an opponent in regards to a Republican. That means everyone can vote in that race, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or NPA. Well, this individual was given the wrong information. So what they did is they had someone else call. So in essence, 3 people was given the same information. I'm not blaming people for that. If you don't know, you just don't know. But that's something to me that is very basic, and everyone should know that in the office. I don't care if you're at the front line or you're in the back. You should know that. So streamlining some processes, making sure that we do some cross training, and making sure they have the tools that they need to succeed, and making sure that the environment is conducive to learning, where it's joyful to come to work and you're having a great time in the office, although the work is hard and it can be strenuous, especially during this time, you know. So those are some of the things that I see that can be improved within the Supervisor of Elections office.
Okay, very good. Gertrude, a question to you. Is there anything that could be improved in the way the office operates? What would it be, and how would you go about improving it?
I'm having problems hearing you. Could you repeat that, please?
Yes. Is there anything about the way the office operates that could be improved? What is it, and how would you improve it?
There's always room for improvement, but I take exception to the comments that were just recently made about the office, about the fact that if one person is not there, no one can be served. We cross-train everybody in the office. We cross-train. We have at least 3 people that can perform every function in the office. And if she found that not to be the case, I'm kind of disappointed, because everybody in the office is cross-trained to another job, because as you say, anything can happen, and anyone can be out at a specific time. So I have always had to cross-train, because I have a very small staff of election professionals. So they are cross-trained. The fact of the universal primary, everybody in the office is aware of the universal primary. We've had universal primaries on a ballot continuously, probably for the last 3 presidential general elections. And so the entire staff is familiar with that process. I'm very sorry to hear that we do hire people, and we're continually hiring people. But we will certainly, if that's the case, I will definitely correct that problem. If that is the case, I will certainly take care of it. Because universal primary, I have that information on the sample ballot, and I have that information on the ballot as well, so people will know that they can vote for any office that appears on their ballot. And the race will be on every ballot in the county, so every voter will receive the ballot with that race on it.
Okay, very good. We'll start this question with Gertrude. We're going to switch gears here a little bit. Tell us about a public figure that you admire. It could be an elected official, local or national. It could be a community leader, anyone. Tell us who you admire and why do you admire them?
Pardon me again. I'm having a real problem with clearly hearing what you're saying. And
okay.
So
okay.
I'm going to try it again.
Okay. Tell us about a public figure whom you admire. It could be an elected official. It could be somebody else. But who do you admire and why do you admire them?
Any public official?
Yes.
A public official that I admire. I have so many people that I see in public service that I do admire. I can't tell you one that I admire any more than I admire the other one. But we have some wonderful public officials right here, and I'm not going to talk about them because I know if I talk about a local official, that individual may be on the ballot, and that might be a little bit biased.
Well, it doesn't have to be a local person. It could be a national figure.
I certainly admire I've had admiration for just about every president of the United States that we've had, to be able to work in that office and be in that kind of office. And we've always had excellent leadership. One of my favorite presidents, of course, was Barack Obama. I had some fun respect for many of the presidents, but he was one of my favorite and most admirable because of his family values and the seriousness he took in making sure that his first priority was the people. And that's what I admire about any public official, that their main concern is the welfare of the people that they serve.
Okay, very good. Sheritta, toss it to you. Tell us about a public official that you would, not necessarily a public official, a public figure you admire. Could be anybody.
Okay, so what's going to probably surprise all of you is for many, many, many years, I admired Mrs. Walker because she was the first African-American in the state of Florida to be a supervisor of elections. Okay, she was the first, and she's been the longest seated constitutional officer. And I liked the way she carried herself. I admired that. Before I put my name in the race in 2016, I went and spoke with her. Thought I was going to get a different outcome, but that's fine. But because of her accomplishments, I think she has a beautiful, beautiful legacy. And that she's one of the ones that I've admired. And of course, my husband, Kim Johnson. I think he did a beautiful job when he was in seat. And for him, it's about the people. And now that he's not in office, he's still in the community. He's still effecting change, and he's still for the people. So and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was a little baffled that come 2020 that I am sitting and being Mrs. Walker's opponent again, because she said on many occasions she was gonna retire. So, but I'm just gonna be honest with you, I've admired her because of what she's accomplished. And hopefully I'm gonna walk in those soon, sooner than later.
Okay, very good. Kind of a similar question. Tell us about an instance, any time in your life, this is for Sheritta to start, where you faced an ethical dilemma, and how did you resolve that?
Okay, let's see. Ethical dilemma. See, my biggest problem is I'm just black and white. I'm cut and dry. So let me think about that. All right, let's see. And anybody that knows me, they're going to be like, that should be difficult for her, because if it's black and white, it's black and white, and that's just the way it is. Oh, you know what? City of Fort Pierce. We had a situation where during the hurricanes, we had some buildings that was damaged, and this was during Hurricane Irma. And everything was, so we had staff out, that was gathering the information, putting everything together so we can actually present to FEMA. And I flipped through some papers, and I should have done a more diligent job. I flipped through some papers to make sure everything was in order, and it looked good. And when I flipped back through, I noticed one of the buildings that was on there was not a building that was in fact damaged. The damage was prior to. So what I did is just put my initial by it. So when we went back to it, that is not even a good example because I caught it before they got to it. I'm stuck right now. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I say I am black and white, I'm black and white. If they say don't do it because of, honestly, fear, I don't know any way to say it, because I don't want to get into any trouble, I don't do it. Maybe I'll have to, and my children will tell you the same. If they've done something wrong, I'm going to be the first one to report them. I'll be the first one to tell. So that's difficult for me right now. I have to kind of think about that. If we can come back to that, I apologize, but that
Okay.
was
All right.
pretty
Well,
difficult.
that's fine. If you think of something, we can maybe come back. Let's throw
Okay.
the question to Gertrude. Gertrude, if you can hear me, well, describe a time you faced an ethical dilemma in your life, and how did you resolve that?
An ethical dilemma. I can't think of one. I really cannot think of one, but I can tell you that I think of every instance that I've encountered in my life. I think of that as the opportunity really to make sure that whatever I do, I'll be proud of it. And I know that there's never a secret, and that regardless of what anyone does, you're always going to be found out, and the facts will always come out. And so my rule is, if you don't want to see this written up in the newspaper, make sure that you do the right thing. That has been the rule that I've taken since I got in the Office of Supervisor of Elections. And also, as a human being, I say, is there anything, is this decision I'm about to make one that I'm going to be proud of? And that's the way I've actually tried to live my life, because I feel like everything that I do is so important, and anything that all of us do, because I just try to make the right decisions on every turn.
Okay, very good. I've got one more question, and then I'll open it up to Larry if he's got any questions. We'll start with Gertrude on this one. Gertrude, you've been in office a long time. Why should voters vote to send you back for another term?
I think the voters should make a decision on that based on the service that I have provided, because if I have not done my job, they certainly need to remove me from office. And, you know, people talk about term limits, and every 4 years, the general public every voter, the general public has to make a decision whether the people that they put in office have served them well. And I would like for the public to think about that. If I've served them well, if I've done my job appropriately, I deserve another term. But if I have not served them and I have not fulfilled my constitutional duties to perform my job, and I have not done that to the very best of their expectations, I think they should make a decision to do something different.
Okay, very good. Last question then for Sheritta. Sheritta, why should voters choose you and not your opponent in this election?
Very good question. Well, the fact that I'm a native of the community, but not just a native, but I'm in the community. I'm close to the people. I have the heartbeat of the community. Along with that, I can affect change. There's some things that I would love to bring to the Supervisor of Elections office. So one of the things that I'd like to do is to increase voter turnout. I would have to say that with my opponent, less than 27% of voters turning out in the primary elections, at this point, that's not acceptable. And to say that we're going to do it now, I think it's a little late now when you've had 40 years to affect that change in the office, if that was primary. The other thing I would like the voters to think about is the generational gap and divide that we have. Bringing that together. So bringing the younger generation's tech savviness and zeal with the older generation's wisdom and knowledge, we can stretch the arms of the Supervisor of Elections far, which will help increase the voters turnout during all elections, not just the primary elections, but during all elections. The other thing is, I think we need to do a better job with transparency within the Supervisor of Elections office, and I will actually do that. Building more community partners, more community relationships, whether it's with the private sector or more public relationships, i.e. with the school board, speaking with them on having the schools used as a polling location, as they're doing in Palm Beach County already. Again, I said that I believe that Mr. Gent is a reasonable guy and that we can kind of talk through some things and work through and see what that'll look like. It may not be tomorrow or next year, but kind of put those things in play now. The other thing I think that we need to do is make sure that democracy is working for all. So I'm here to effect change, the change that we need in the Supervisor of Elections office at this point. I cannot take away what Ms. Walker has done. She's done a great job. So it's like running a race, running a relay race. She was the first leg, and that's what starts the pace. But if the first leg decides to run past the second, then it messes up everything. We disqualify. So in order to keep us going and effective, I think it's time for change. And I think I can be that change that St. Lucie County can depend on. I have integrity. I can be the one that you can trust to move the Supervisor of Elections office to the next level. Ms. Walker has done her job. I don't think anyone's going to complain about that. But once you blaze the trail, I think someone can come behind you like myself to widen that trail and make sure there's more opportunities out there for others. And that's why I think that voters should vote for me, Sheritta Davis Johnson.
Okay, very good. Thank you, candidates. Larry, do you have any questions for either of our guests here today?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I appreciate them for both coming in and answering our questions. You want to do a final wrap up there?
Yeah, sure. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks to both Sheritta and Gertrude. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I think everyone could hear everything. And I think voters, everybody made a good case to voters as to why they should vote for the individual candidates. Again, you can find all this information online at tcpalm.com/elections. We have the questionnaires that have been filled up by the candidates on our social media pages, including Facebook. You will be able to find this interview today, so people who weren't able to catch it live can go back and take a look at their leisure. And again, stick with TCPalm for our coverage of the upcoming elections. We've got another interview coming up today with some judicial candidates and more later on this week. And again, tcpalm.com/elections is going to be your one-stop shop for all things ballot related this year. I'm columnist Gil Smart. Thanks to Larry Reisman. Thanks to our guests. We'll see you again soon.